Hey everyone, welcome back to another Unreserved episode. My name is Keiana and I am one of the producers here on the team. Today we will be discussing the motion to defund the police. I've invited four guests to chat with me about their thoughts on the matter. In addition, I will be challenging their opinions where necessary. If you guys like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Unreserved creates videos regarding social and political issues. So yeah, stay tuned and enjoy the video. I'm gonna start with you guys introducing yourselves. So I guess you can tell me your name, anything about you that's relevant to this discussion, and why you chose to participate in this conversation. So Akila, we can start with you.
I think the reason I chose to be part of this discussion is I've seen a lot of people stand in solidarity with the community, and then I've seen a lot of people kind of stay in silence. So I think it kind of inspired me to, I guess, be more radical in a sense, to kind of push the boundaries and make people think about what it is they're really standing for.
I was born in the States and then I moved to Canada, so I'm especially interested in this because it affects myself, my family, and I feel like conversations, like discussing, is a great way of starting to facilitate change. And so anything that I can do to participate in actually seeing change is something I'm passionate about, and I would love to jump on board.
The reason I want to be a part of this is I've actually been working in law enforcement for the last 5 years. I'm not a police officer, so don't worry about all that. But I just figured this is a great way to try to build some bridges and gain some insight as to how people are feeling about what's going on in the world.
Going into my 5th year of econ in September, virtually, you know the vibes. And as far as the reason I wanted to join in on this conversation is because I feel like it's a thing that I've been waiting for a chance to join in on, with regards to just a lot of people have been in our situation, not our, like all of us in the call, but a lot of people have been in the situation where like this is something we've been passionate about for a long time. And we were just waiting for a chance where people would start reaching out to people looking for who's done the research and who's done the Googles. So yeah, I feel like, I'm prepped for this still.
In 30 seconds or less, share with us your overall perspective on what has been unfolding in our society in regard to race.
People have stopped demanding kind of the surface level change. So things such as maybe cultural competency training, or the Band-Aids finally giving us our skin color Band-Aids. People have stopped demanding those surface level policies of change, and they want to see real structural change. We see this in the fact that people are protesting. It's been, I think, a consecutive 30 days now. And I think now more than ever, yes, protests need to continue in the streets, but we should also take it to city halls. We should also take it to politicians to really challenge our societal way of thinking and challenge the societal rules right now. It's been a very painful 4 weeks, a very painful, honestly, few years, but it's also really inspiring to see the power of pressure. When people apply pressure, what happens? So yeah.
Society as a whole is becoming fed up. You see, it's not just people of color that are fighting for these justices, but even white people are, saying enough is enough at this point. It's time to change the narrative.
But one thing that I think that needs to be addressed more is just being on the same page, because I really don't see it as a us against them, the community against the police. I feel like there should be a bridge. There should be some sort of unity between the two, because at the end of the day, both sides aren't really going anywhere. As a society, we've got to mesh together and just build a bridge of communication and then learn to grow and move forward from there. If that means rebooting the system and implementing a bunch of new things, then I'm all for it.
Since I was 12 years old, it's been the same cycle of a video comes out of some injustice of a cop killing an unarmed Black man. People rally for a little bit, then they forget, and it goes right back and it repeats. And it's been like that way since I was 12 years old. Now I'm 20, and this is the first time that it's happened, and people had nowhere else to direct their energy. And all of a sudden now we're actually having large scale change in a shorter amount of time. Things that we expected to take 10, 20 years to happen are happening in a much shorter period of time.
Do you think that all police officers should be held accountable for the actions of their counterparts? Why or why not?
No, but I do feel like there should be accountability across the board in general. Just as if you're in a workplace and you do something wrong, like let's say, I don't know, like you're a cashier and you take money from the till at the end of the day, everyone's not going to get fired for it, but everyone is going to go through training. Everyone is going to be under like higher security. And I feel the same thing should happen in policing. If one police officer, two, do something that's incorrect, the entire board or the entire system in general needs to be looked at, and there needs to be accountability for everyone there to where they learn from their peers' mistakes and we prevent that from happening again.
I'm not necessarily convinced that, yes, obviously police officers need to be held accountable, but how do we do that in a way that we haven't already? Do you understand what I'm saying? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And like, I'm totally with you. And that's why I said it's about like what accountability looks like. Because to me, defunding the police is a form of accountability, right? Looking at what they've done in the past and looking at, you know, patterns historically between the 80s and the 90s and what how policing has worked and how it's affected the communities that they've been placed into as their budgets have increased over the course of time. I feel like defunding them and taking that money away and putting it in places where it's more useful takes away their power. So to me, that's a form of accountability as well. I feel like I 100%, I was so happy when you were talking about police unions because oftentimes when you really, really look at it, like it really, really bothers me the fact that police are policing police. And when you really, really look at the way the system's structured and these type of systems where you're being policed by your colleagues are present all across many of the structures in just North America in general. If you look at even a more local sense, a lot of us university students on campuses, frat houses, fraternities and sorority, it's other fraternity members that are deciding what happens to their fraternity member, right? So I think that what needs to happen as far as accountability, number one, defunding will be a really, 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 really great way to go about it. I feel like an external review board without police ties, now, I don't know exactly how that would look because I feel like that's a very, very complex and touchy situation to go about. But I feel like an external police review board that does not have police ties could be a really, really good entity with regards to just putting the hammer down on police that aren't doing their job the way they should be doing it. I really feel like defunding them is a very, very good solution for the future.
It's interesting because even if they do face consequences, I think there are systems in place that kind of keep it hidden.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like keeping police records confidential. But if doctors commit malpractice, then you can look it up. If lawyers fabricate evidence, they get disbanded. If nurses have a national database where you can search up a nurse's name, and it basically gives you a very detailed story of why they lost their license and why you can't allow them to practice anywhere else. So, for example, if me as a nursing student became a nurse tomorrow and I did something that caused me to lose my license, someone could look up my name and see exactly why, like a whole history of why I lost my license. And basically it deters me from finding a job anywhere else as a nurse. Now, there's no national database for police conduct. And it just leads me to think, like, the accountability people are demanding, to that extent, is that even possible anymore? Because of this system that's allowing them to perpetuate this much violence and coercion.
It's kind of wild. We're the generation that's going to be the spearheads of what that looks like going forward. You know what I mean? Like, we have the tools, we have the knowledge now to where when we're the 30, 40-year-olds that are in power and that get to make decisions, and that, you know, the policymakers, the heads of corporations and these type of things, like, I feel like we're really going to be able to impact the change, and that the next generation, they're going to be able to build on what we built up. But I feel like our generation is a really, really good powerhouse. Like, we're a turning point for real in history.
Okay, so I can't speak much about policing in the States because that's not what I know. Mostly it's for Ontario, really. That's what I know with regards to policing. But the SIU is actually a civilian group that overwatches the police. That's all of Ontario. So that's Toronto, all the way up to OPP in Pickle Lake, wherever the fuck that is, right? So what the SIU does is they investigate misconduct, but the more serious cases. So it'll be cases where firearms discharged. The SIU is there. They're not associated with the police. They have the ability to charge police, they have the ability to fire police, all of that, but they're not the police. They're involved in cases with sexual harassment, racism, anything that's above that threshold of being serious, that's where the SIU steps in. Civilian oversight. Like civilians and police, again, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like we need to be on the same page. We need to be together, right? Personally, again, working in law enforcement, if you haven't done the job, you don't understand all the aspects of it. You don't know what you see. You don't know how you got to react in certain situations, or as to why shit might have hit the fan. You could be completely in the right. Shit's still gonna hit the fan regardless. There's nothing you do to stop that, right? So I feel like having a board with a mixture of both, where they could have healthy communication between each other and figure out as to common ground as to where they could come to make a decision. I feel like that's something that will be super beneficial. Another thing you guys brought up was accountability for the police, right? Again, agree 100%. You're in a public servant capacity. Accountability is probably number one on your list, or at least it should be. Body cameras, video start to end, full incidents, they do not lie, with audio, of course. but yeah, body cameras aren't cheap. Toronto Police doesn't have body cameras. Peel Regional Police doesn't have body cameras, right? Durham Regional Police doesn't have body cameras, right? So by defunding or taking away some of that, you're losing that ability to hold these guys accountable. Another thing I wanted to touch on was training, right? And this might sound a little cynical or whatever the case may be, but you could train someone as much as you want on anything. But at the end of the day, you're going to be who you are. Training is only training. You fundamentally, who you are deep down, that's who you're going to be. So I feel like a lot of the change, or a lot of hiring the right people, it starts in the hiring process, getting the right people on the road, out in the community, associating with people. You need the right people.
It's more so of like your level of involvement and your level of understanding, and I guess also the research, because even when I first heard the term, I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. Then I looked at the Toronto Police Services budget, and I see like, okay, well, basically 90% of the money is going to like salary or pay, not only for police, but also for like the people who like are crossing guards for schools and stuff. And I'm like, okay, but if I take money from them, how is that helping the cause in general, right? And so when you read more, then I guess you're not read more, but when you see more, hear different perspectives, your idea sort of switches. And I think that's why we see some people are 100% for abolishing or not, because they see there is that structural issue. And also earlier we discussed it where it's very intertwined in the system. This is a systemic issue. It's not just the police. So when we affect the police or impact them, we're impacting politicians. When we do that, we're impacting businesses, like the larger corporations. When we do that, we're impacting ourselves in a way, because it is a whole cycle. And so I think that's also why some people are very hesitant. I can say for myself, that's why sometimes I'm hesitant into it, because of just the larger repercussions that can happen from that.
My understanding of why these things have been implemented isn't because necessarily they don't have the money for it. It's because they voted actively against it. I don't think it's a function of like we don't have enough money, like the cloud of money we have. I think it's just a matter of how it's allocated and how it's distributed, right? I also feel like one goal of defunding would also be, if you reduce the budget by X amount, not to a point where they aren't able to do what they need to do, but I feel like if you reduce the budget by X amount, now they have to really, really pick and choose, where do we need this money to go?
Do you guys think even if they were to break the system down and, weed out all the bad cops and build it back up, do you think we would still have that issue of corruption eventually, unless there are changes all across the different industries in society?
Yeah.
I don't think you'll ever get rid of corruption 100%, whether you revamp the system or start from scratch. I feel like there's always the potential for it to happen, and unfortunately, someone's going to see the opportunity to do that and they're going to take advantage. That's just my opinion.
I don't think that if we, I guess, disbanded the system and tried to rebuild it, it depends, because the system the way that it is now, it can never protect the people it was designed to work against. Even with the conversation of a few bad apples, what is going on? I don't think it's it's the result of a few bad apples. It's a result of, honestly, a system that was created to do exactly what it's doing right now. It's designed to be irretractable on purpose, and I don't think one individual person or one individual person's attitude can really change an entire system. So yeah.
Wait, what system are we talking about specifically? Like, are we talking about the law system, the criminal justice, like politicians?
She mentioned like everything, like not only policing, but also I think you were talking about like structural institutions as well, like things like maybe schooling, hospitals, things like that. Like, do you think that the issue is everywhere? Basically, is a question, right?
Well, more like, will the issue in terms of like what people want to do with the police be resolved if there aren't changes all across the board, right?
Oh no, but go.
Oh no, you got it.
I was gonna say that as far as so if we understand that it is a structural thing and initially you said like if we break it down, if we start from scratch, like would it be hard? Like would people still be able to, you know, commit acts of corruption and this, that, and the third? I feel like the idea of breaking down and then rebuilding the system wouldn't be with the end goal of, you know, there's no corruption at all. I feel like to a certain extent, if you're being realistic, you have to expect these things to happen. It's just a matter of how hard do you make it for them to happen and for people to get away with them. You know what I mean? I feel like it definitely is a widespread thing. I feel like fixing policing doesn't fix everything. I feel like the way that the police system works, like Akila said, it's a system that was built to do exactly what it's doing right now. Like it's widespread. The entirety of the system is built for these type of things to happen. It's just that you know, negligent policing just so happens to be a symptom of this greater, you know what I mean, like this greater illness in society and in the structure. Like with regards to people like, and corruption specifically, as a Nigerian, it's people are gonna do it. if people want to go look for loopholes in the system and use it to their personal gain or their personal advantage, they're gonna do it. They're gonna find a way to do it. It's just a matter of making it really, really, really hard for them to actually do it.
Yeah, and I thought of that only because of what Richard said, where at the end of the day, you hire the person. So it's on the person hiring officers to ensure that, you know, they're bringing the right type of people into the space, right? Because it starts with the one person that makes the mistake and the person that covers up for the person and the groups of people that are just piling on to this corruption, right? So yeah, I guess that's just my little 2 cents in there. But
Just got a quick question.
did
Like,
anyone else wanna? Yeah.
like what is corruption? Like, how do we define corruption?
Oh, as a Nigerian talking to the right guy, let me break this down. So I feel like corruption is exploiting the flaws of a system that already exists for personal gain and completely disregarding the negative effects that it has on everybody else that may be involved in the system. So like politically, politicians committing fraud and this, that, and the third, hiding tax returns, blah, blah, whatever. With regards to policing, this idea of a blue veil, right? Having people in place that are supposed to check the police, really, really working with the police, and like it's kind of convoluted there. Officers feeling as though they can't reprimand their or not reprimand, but you know, hold accountable and fix in the situation, like when they see their fellow officer doing something wrong. I feel like that's a result of corruption. So yeah, basically just playing the system for your own personal gain, despite whatever negative effects it may have on everybody else.
So like, say for instance, like you go to Tim Hortons and they give you like a free coffee, and like you're a police officer, right? Is that a form of corruption as well?
I don't think so, because I don't think that has a negative effect on anybody. Now, granted, I feel like corruption is more so in the sense of people in power using their power to do, you know, not so great things that benefit them specifically. But I feel like giving an officer a coffee, you know, like, I don't really, you know, I don't know if it hurts anybody, you know what I mean? Like, and in the same way, like the if you look at, officers get a lot of perks when they go places, right? As far as like restaurants and whatever, like, you know, I've seen it a lot where there's police discounts and, you know, they walk in and they give an officer, here's this thing for free. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like do your thing, you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. You're trying to be nice But I feel like corruption is more so in like the people of power that could make structural changes and that have the ability to make large scale decisions that affect a lot of people. I feel like that's where corruption can happen more so.
So those are all my primary questions for you guys. Does anyone have any like takeaway or ending statements in regard to how they feel about the relationship with the police and the community going forward, or just people in power and the police, etc.?
I think it's gonna get better. I will say that. Like these days, I'm starting to gain. It's hard to like find silver linings in these types of situations, right? Oftentimes they don't exist, but it's like I found for the first time, like I said before, like this type of thing happens every single year since I was like 12 years old. You know what I mean? So like I find for the first time, it's not just outrage; it's outrage and solutions on like the main, like in the mainstream sense of it, right? There's always people with solutions. There always have been people with solutions, but I feel like for the first time, I'm looking at a lot of people really looking towards making change that's actually going to do something. I feel like that makes me really, really happy to know that, like, you know, my youths one day are gonna go outside and maybe they won't have to be scared of police. Maybe they'll be able to go out and, you know, kick it, and police officer comes by and there's no fear in their hearts, you know what I mean? Or maybe even the generation after them. But I feel like it's good to know that we're on a right path, you know what I mean? And that like our generation, we're putting the knowledge and information that we have to use, and we're actually doing something, because our parents and generation before us, they didn't have the benefit of the internet and, you know what I mean, go up, look up statistics and transparency in that sense. But I feel like we have a new level of transparency and power and understanding. I feel like we're putting it to good use, you know?
I think what's most important for people to remember now is just the power that education can have. On one aspect, honestly, I think unconscious bias training could be harmful, because sometimes it implies that the brutality at the hands of the police are somewhat unintentional or unconscious, when in reality there are truly, honestly, agents of evil, people that are members of the KKK that are also members of the police. So on one aspect, I see why just trying to wish it away or trying to hope that training will solve the problem is an issue. But on the other hand, education can be extremely powerful, because I think we've seen like over and over again how people learn behavior. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Dave Grossman, but he does seminars on warrior policing, or he did seminars on warrior policing. And he taught police officers to fight violence in communities with superior violence, with righteous violence. He said, and I quote, "Violence is our tool. Violence is the realm we operate in." And he even went as far as to say, if you properly prepare yourself, killing is not that big of a deal. Now, he can't be blamed, obviously, for all of, for obviously the bigger system that is perpetuating violence, but education does play a massive part in learned behavior, because the officer, Geronimo Yamez, I think his name is, took his seminar, and 2 years later, he was at a traffic stop asking Philando Castile for his license and registration, and fired 7 shots within 90 seconds of the encounter. So it just goes to show, honestly, I remember someone said, regardless of whether or not you change the culture of policing, a person is still a person. It's important to remember that no one is born racist, no one's born a bigot. It needs to be taught. So honestly, I think we need more educators to make people aware of their ignorance, make people aware of their privilege, and help people come to like a better understanding of what their opinion is. Because I think honestly, it can be really disingenuous to write off police abolition altogether without understanding the full story. It's also disingenuous to claim police abolition without understanding the full story. So honestly, my takeaway from all of this is education is really important.
Me, is just more so this issue, you know, as we discussed, it is systemic. It's not just in policing, it's not just in workplaces, it's not just with politicians, it's across the board. And so it's very important to institute change really in every possible place and way that we can. It does begin with education, but it also is very important to have that implementation. It's great to have all these laws and policies and boards, but we really need to see action be taken. And I think that's a big change that we've seen in these recent protests versus previous months and previous years where it's just been a lot of talk and no action. We need serious action to see change. And it's not a thing of, us versus them, but really working together to make a better system for everyone that will benefit us. And then also just knowing that it's very promising that we are very educated in this and we're facilitating change for our kids and our grandkids and so on and so forth. There's just going to be a better future and a brighter life.